Hey everyone, this is Jason from Alphatone Audio, and today we're going to talk about balanced cables. Now, I talked about cables before, and last time I did that, we talked about unbalanced cables. And we took a look at a bunch, and I kind of gave a lot of details on all of these individually. And the reason I did that is because I think it just matters a lot more when you're talking unbalanced cables as opposed to balanced cables. And especially if you're like in guitar high impedance, low output signal, unbalanced land. I mean, there's a lot of problems you can have there, like running around on stage, microphonic, breaking, stepping on cable kind of problems. I mean, put it this way, when you're dealing with unbalanced stuff, you need to have better cable because there's little to no protection available in default unbalanced audio. When you start talking about cables or good cables or bad cables, I mean, I don't really think that cables make your signals sound good. They just make them sound less bad. You don't buy cable to sound better. You buy good cable because you're loss averse and you don't want to lose qualities of your signal. Now, as soon as you get into balanced audio, a lot of problems go away automatically. The impedances and the levels of the gear you're dealing with typically change. You have the built-in noise reduction of the balanced circuit itself. So basically, you can, of course, you can buy good cable and bad cable in balanced format all day long, right? But I'm just saying it doesn't make as big a difference, in my opinion, to get a slightly cheaper grade of balanced cable as it does with unbalanced cable. So if you really want good results with unbalanced stuff, you just have to do a lot more things right. Balanced, just a lot less problems, in my opinion. So with that in mind, well, I'm not going to take a lot of time and talk about a whole bunch of individual part numbers and do a lot of comparisons between the individual balanced cables. What I'd rather do is maybe give you a couple options in the balanced cable families that you're not particularly aware of. And I'm sure you've all seen stuff like this, and this, if you wanted to make a standard microphone cable, then you would use something like this. And this is very much just like a guitar cable or something like that. It's fairly flexible. It has a fairly thick outer jacket on it to help protect the conductors on the inside and all that kind of stuff. It's very familiar. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this because you should be pretty familiar with this anyway. I want to talk about a couple categories of cable that you might not know about. Now the first one, this is Mogami 2806, and to quote Mogami, this is their install grade balanced mic cable. So what makes it install grade? Well, there's a couple things that set this apart. One, the outer jacket, and especially on the Mogami stuff, where they tend to have that really nice, smooth, silky kind of feel to the outer jacket, this is not like that. It's about the same thickness as their high-grade mic cable, but it almost feels like a hard plastic, and it's just a lot more rigid. You can see, once you bend it, it takes a long time for this to come back. And honestly, if you're going to put something in a wall or in a rack and you're just going to put it and you don't really want it to move in operation, you actually kind of want a little bit of rigidity. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with during the installation. The second thing about a cable like this is this one in particular has 22 gauge conductors on it, which is on the big side for microphone cable. And the reason you want that extra copper in the conductors is because you could run this hundreds of feet. I mean, I don't mean just like a studio installation, but if you're running this stuff across, like a building, university, that kind of stuff, you could easily get into a couple hundred feet with this stuff. And just like I said, the bigger conductor, a little bit less resistance, just helps your signal go the distance. So this is just one variation, and this is what they call install grade. And the next variation, console cable. And again, this is a Mogami product. This is 2944. And thin, very, very thin, almost like a lavalier mic thin. If we put the calipers on this, it says it's about 1/10 of an inch, and this is 0.03, 0.0992. I think it specs says about 1/10 of an inch. So anyway, much smaller. Your typical mic cable is generally about 1/4 inch. 0.2 on that install cable. So again, like half the outer diameter of that, which is nice if you have to bundle up a lot of them. You don't have just tons of cable. And the thing is, if you're going to take cable and you're going to put it into a patch bay, you're going to come out of the bottom of a console, put it in the back of a rack, where basically you put it there and you never move it, meaning you don't coil it up at the end of the day and throw it on the wall or throw it in your road case or whatever. You don't need those huge, thick outer jackets on there that protect the conductors. Basically, the outer jacket on there just to hold the shield together. So it's nice to have this small cable for stuff that just needs to stay out of the way. Again, because this is one of their smaller ones that they make, we're back down to a smaller wire gauge. The conductors on here are 26 gauge, which is, again, perfectly fine for shorter runs. I mean, I'd run this 50, 100 feet like no problem. So another good thing about this, you can get it in 10 colors. So again, if you really think about being organized with like a PA system or a studio, something like that, you want to color code different racks, different bays, that kind of thing, you can. You can get really OCD with this stuff if you want, which is really nice. And this cable in particular doesn't have the feature on it, but when you get into some of the install cable or the console cables, they call it, when we talked about the unbalanced cables, we talked about the difference between the spiral braid, or excuse me, the spiral shield and the braided shield. When you start getting into this installation type cable, you get a third option, which is foil, which is literally just like a very thin piece of aluminum foil that you get. Usually, sometimes in addition to a braid or a spiral, but normally you just get the foil shield in there and you just get one small thin conductor outside of the two conductors that carry your signal, and then that's what you use to just tie off to your ground. Foil is great. It's the best shield you can get because you always get 100% coverage out of it. The downside is it is a little bit fragile, so it's not great for stage use or something like that because it just doesn't have a very good life cycle and it doesn't hold up to bending well. It's going to break and all of a sudden your 100% coverage is going to fall really quickly. They are install grade. You can easily find this about 55, 60 cents a foot. Their console cable, about 30 cents a foot. And this is good quality stuff. So you can get a couple hundred feet of this and actually not be out that much money, do a whole lot of wiring, run a whole lot of signal on these. So that's what I want to talk about today. Just know that there are lots and lots of options, and we haven't even talked about running stuff through like ducts or like there's tons of other cables we didn't get into. I want to get into those in the future, but just these two grades, if you start, instead of just searching for mic cable, if you're looking for something different, start searching for either install cable or console cable, and you'll come up with a lot of different variations, and you may find something a little bit closer to what you're looking for. So hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time.